Hello, friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Rick Roll. All right, it's kind of a rainy day today, so there's not really a whole lot that I can do outside. I don't really have anything that needs to be fixed inside, so it sounds like a perfect day for another episode of Mouse Food. Today I have chosen a lasagna recipe because it's a little chilly out and lasagna sounds really good, and I love lasagna. So I had a lasagna recipe sent to us by none other than Elvis Presley. This brings about some staggering implications because number one, the king is alive. Number two, he's watching my channel. And number three, he's submitting recipes. And we all know how much Elvis loved to eat. So this is probably going to be pretty good. Now, I got to admit right up front, my benchmark for lasagna is my mom's recipe. And I don't know if it's going to be even possible to surpass that. But one of the things this one's got going for it is it's a little bit easier to make. My mom's version has 6 different varieties of cheese. This has only has 2, so it's going to be a little less expensive, a little easier to do. So let's see how this turns out. Now I am actually going to modify the recipe a little bit. Not going to actually change any of the ingredients, but what this is a 2-layer lasagna, which means that there's meat sauce, then pasta, meat sauce, pasta, and meat sauce. I'm actually going to add an extra layer to it. So I've purchased a little bit more ground beef, a little bit more pasta sauce, and a little bit more cheese. I think this will just result in a thicker lasagna, which hopefully we'll get a few more meals out of it. So let's go check out Elvis Presley's lasagna. All right, so the ingredients for Elvis Presley's lasagna are relatively simple. You need a pound of ground beef. Like I said, I'm going to add a little bit more to make it a 3-layer or 4-layer lasagna instead of a 3-layer. 10 ounces or 2.5 cups of mozzarella cheese. I'm going to increase that. I got a whole pound of that. Now I could have bought already grated cheese, but whenever possible, I like to go as fresh as I can. So I just bought a nice 1-pound block of mozzarella cheese, and I'm going to grate it myself. 15 ounces of ricotta cheese, and I got this. This just comes in a tin like this. It says 6 slices of lasagna noodle. Like I said, I'm going to do 3 layers of pasta, so I'm gonna half again that to 9. And 32 ounces of Classico tomato and basil pasta sauce. And the directions actually call for the Classico brand. That's how apparently Elvis does it. Now, like I said, I got 44 ounces because we're going to double up, or we're going to increase the ingredients a little bit to add the extra layer to it. And then since I didn't have an 11 by 7 cooking pan, I just bought this. This is actually an 11 by 9 cooking pan, but since we're going to have an extra layer and some extra materials, I think this will work just fine. So the first step that we're going to take is we're going to brown the ground beef. Now the ground beef I had in the aluminum foil was still a little bit frozen, so I kind of nuked it a little bit just to thaw it out. But I've mixed it in with the 1 pound of ground beef that I have purchased, and we're just going to kind of all mix it together here. So let it do its thing. As the heater heats up, we'll go from there. And basically you just want to cook it until it's nice and brown and no more pink on it. So I think that's about ready. We've turned the heat off. We're going to let that cool. And we're going to drain that, and then we'll go from there. Now once we've drained the grease off of the meat, we're just going to mix it into the skillet here with the pasta sauce. Like I said, I'm using a little bit more pasta sauce because I'm going an extra layer on this. And I want to have a little bit more content. And in goes the meat. And I'm just going to mix this all together, and this is going to become our meat sauce. Personally, I like a lot of meat in my lasagna anyway, so that's good. It's okay if it turns out a little thick. We can live with that. And now I'm just going to bring this up to a slow simmer on the stove. Now while we're heating up the meat sauce, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grate the mozzarella cheese using the good old handy dandy food processor. And then I'm just going to take the grated mozzarella cheese and I'm going to put it in this little bowl here. Now the directions actually imply that you put the lasagna pasta just onto the into the mixture uncooked. I'm not sure if that's right or not. Usually every lasagna I've ever seen says you cook the lasagna as per the recipe before you use it. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to prepare the lasagna normally, which means I'm just going to boil it in water for about 8 minutes, dry it off a little bit, and then we'll go on to the next step. So now my meat sauce has kind of come to a slow simmer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower the heat right now just to keep it warm. And I'm going to stir it occasionally just so that we don't burn it. All right, so I've brought my water up to a boil, and now I'm just going to insert the lasagna pasta noodles here. And we're going to just throw them in there one at a time. I intentionally use a big pot like this because I kind of like to keep the pasta noodles from breaking. And if you do too small of a pot when you're boiling it, you know, the noodles tend to break, and I don't like that. So that's just a personal choice. You can do something smaller, but this is what I like to do. And then according to the instructions, I'm going to cook it for 8 minutes. So timer, start. And we'll come back in 8 minutes. I'm going to keep stirring this just periodically to kind of keep it moving and keep the noodles from sticking together. All right, 8 minutes have passed. Our pasta is ready to go. So let's kill the heat on that and drain it. Now, since I'm going to end up handling this all, I kind of like to cool it off a little bit. So I'm going to run some cold water on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take the individual pieces of lasagna out here. I'm going to set it down on the on a napkin just to dry it off a little bit. Putting a layer of paper towels in between each of the layers here. Like I said, none of this is in the directions, but this is just how I've always made lasagna in the past. So next, the instructions say just lightly grease your pan a little bit. I'm going to use some pan cooking spray. I usually use that. It just kind of keeps everything from sticking. And then we're going to just start assembling it in layers here. Going to start off with some of the meat sauce on the bottom. I'm just going to use my basting brush just to kind of mix everything around in there. Then I'm going to put one layer of pasta on. It's okay if it runs up the side a little bit. And take some of the ricotta cheese. Now the ricotta cheese has kind of the consistency of like yogurt, so you kind of almost have to spoon it in there. Now I want to put about a third of it in here, because we're going to put, just kind of equally spread it between the layers here. And I got just a rubber scraper that I'm going to use just to kind of mix it around a little bit. Get a little bit more in there, because we're going to actually end up using the whole can here. The ricotta cheese is really the only thing I didn't get extra of. Kind of make sure you get a good layer across all of it. Then I'm going to go with the mozzarella. We're going to just really healthy dose that. I want to put about a third of that in here, maybe a little bit more. Kind of cover everything up. And then we're going to go with another layer of the meat sauce. Once again, smooth it around a little bit with the basting brush, just to make sure you get a good coverage over everything in here. Like I said, we're going to use all that too, so. Then we move on to the next layer of the pasta. Some more of the ricotta. Like I said, we're going to use all of this up, so I want to basically go with about half of what's left in there right now. We're going to go about half of the rest of the mozzarella. Another couple scoops of the meat sauce. Want to leave just a little bit because we're going to top it off a little bit with that. Basting brush again, just to kind of spread everything around. Looks good, right? And then we're going to go with the final layer of the pasta. Like I said, if you're only following the instructions, you know, you're only going to have 2 layers of this. But like I said, I'm doing 3 layers. Just because that's who I am. I never follow the rules, right? We're going to put the rest of the ricotta in there. We're going to put the rest of the mozzarella in here. And then we're going to top it off with the rest of the meat sauce. I'm just going to use my rubber scraper here to get everything out. Now I know it looks like I don't have as much of the meat sauce on the top, but as this cooks, it'll kind of percolate to the top, so. Like I said, I'm just going to kind of coat everything across the top here and make sure we have a decent coating over everything here, and then we're good to go here. Gotta make sure I got everything in there. And then we're just going to add an extra about 1/4 cup of warm water, and we're just going to kind of pour it around the outside edges. That'll just give it a little bit more liquid. That will eventually kind of percolate to the top and kind of keep everything soaked in there real good. And now this is ready to go. What I need to do is I'm going to preheat my oven to 375 degrees, and the instructions say actually cover this thing with about 2 layers of aluminum foil, just kind of tightly wrapped around the edges. Sorry, bumped the camera there a little bit, but that's what the final product looks like. That's ready to go in the oven now as soon as the oven is preheated. All right, here we go. We are preheated to 375 degrees. And in we go. And we are going to cook this at 375 degrees for 45 minutes. After the 45 minutes, we'll remove it, we'll take the foil off, and we'll cook it for another 10 minutes uncovered. All right, we're done with the 45 minutes. So let's remove this. Take the foil off. Oh yeah, that's starting to look good. And then back in for another 10 minutes. All right, we are done. Now we bring it out here. Gonna let it rest for 10 minutes. And then we're gonna try it and see how it tastes. Looks good, smells good. All right, I'll be honest, this smells really good, and it looks like it looks good, smells good. It's a little runny right now, but I suspect that if I put it in the fridge a little bit and then nuke it tomorrow for another meal, it'll probably be really good. So let's give it the all-important taste test here, see what it's like. It is, it's very good, it's very good. Just for my own personal taste, you know me, I like my food to be a little spicy. I'd probably introduce a little crushed red pepper in it to give it a little bit more of a bite. You know me, I like my food to bite me back, but it's good. Yeah, no complaints at all. Elvis Presley knows lasagna. So I think that's all I have for today. Thank you as always for watching. Thank you, Elvis Presley, for providing a good recipe. For the rest of you, if you're interested in doing this, please send your recipes to me at escapingthemouse@gmail.com. I'll put that, I don't know, somewhere on the screen here. So anyway, that is all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.